For as long as I could remember, I've always enjoyed being alone. It's always rattled my mind how the simple idea of avoiding people can be so addicting. It's something that, as a kid, I was always very prone to. Seclusion. I would hide away because people add complications. People make things worse. It's only when I got older and realized that all that emo shit was not helping me have a healthy and happy life, but it's always there. This desire to hide away, leave what is essentially my life alone and hide. Whether it comes from insecurity or fear of being hurt or what have you, I don't really know. But if anything I just said right now resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, then I think you should follow me as we discuss a cute little indie game by the name of Sorry We're Closed. A little indie gem to be pulled out of the ever-expanding sludge pile that is the Steam indie market. Sorry We're Closed is a game about love, about loneliness, and the inability to move on and grow from a past situation, which I found incredibly cathartic. The game is basically the queer bastard child of Killer 7 and Silent Hill Origins. Okay, that last one in a good way. This game is unapologetically queer. It is unapologetically psychological horror, and interestingly enough, it is very much in that category of horror that not many people talk about, known as psychosexual horror. Though I didn't find the sexual themes in this game as intrusive as others, I would be remiss to not bring up the single key feature of this game, which is, well, if you have eyeballs, you'd be able to see this game is so cunty. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? Okay, this game is dripping with sauce. It almost feels like a more pop-punk version of the later parts of JoJo at times, which is kind of awesome. Regardless of what I have to say about this game, I want to cover it all. I want to break down the game, cover its story, the path I took on my first playthrough, and before we get into it, I'd like to say, spoiler warning, but the game has a lot of routes you can take, and though there are a few interesting paths to talk about that could be spoiled, I think everyone's experience with this game is going to be different. It's a weirdly personal experience. So, with that preamble out of the way, let's hop in. Starting off, we get one of the weirder framing devices of the game's narrative. Basically, as you could probably tell with the interlaced scan lines on the screen right now, this is a TV show playing in-universe. This is Dying Petals, a show between two lovers, Epiphany Oxblood and Canary Rouge, which are two of the greatest names I've ever heard in my life, while also somehow being the worst names I've ever heard in my life. It's so trashy, but it turns out it's just you, the main character, Michelle, daydreaming about the show while at your job, which you get shaken out of by one of the more interesting characters in the game, and also, might I add, incredibly integral to the plot, Daryl. We don't get a last name. Daryl is, much like every single character in this game, designed like he is an alt skin in a Tekken game. He's complaining to you about his relationship drama. He keeps proposing to his boyfriend Oakley, and Oakley, although in love with him, says no, because he doesn't think he's ready yet, neither Daryl or him. Meanwhile, Michelle, could not give two single shits because I have my own shit to worry about, or she does. See, the lady who was playing Epiphany Oxblood and Dying Petals, yeah, that's your ex-girlfriend. She broke up with you 3 years ago in the game, and Michelle has not taken it, well, at all. I'd say probably she took it as horrible as you could possibly imagine, but, you know, it ties into the game's central themes. You are still kind of obsessed with your ex, more so beating yourself up for not being enough to keep the relationship going. I hope this internal struggle has gotten you through this dialogue, because as you could tell, Michelle really doesn't give a shit about what Daryl has to say at this point in the story, and you also kind of want him to shut up and leave. Once you're done your tedious conversation with someone holding you, a minimum wage cashier hostage with their emotional baggage, can't relate to that at all, you close up the shop for the night and head into what is essentially the main hub area of the game, and also the social gameplay side of the game. See, the game is divided into two major sections, the more gameplay-heavy section, which we will be covering later, and these sections, where you roam this small street corner that does get a little bit larger as you play the game. It's basically where your apartment and work are located at, so once you wrap up a day of work, you end up either talking to the majority of the people here or rushing home. Either way, you end up going back to your apartment, and that's where usually the day kinda ends. In these social sections, the majority of the story decisions are made, and you get to be introduced to the majority of the colorful cast of characters that occupy this game. Though right now, the streets only have 4. Oakley, Daryl's boyfriend and all-around sweetie pie, and owner of a local diner. Marnie, probably one of my favorite characters in the game, who is a nerdy record store worker who also obsesses over demons, and is so close to being right about how demons actually work that it's scary, but he's always like 10% off every time he talks about it. It's like those sensory videos with 2 glass bottles filled with random objects swinging on strings, but they almost hit, but they never do until like the last second. That's kind of what like talking to him is like. He just lore dumps to you and you're like, huh, that's surprisingly accurate, but he always gets it wrong at the end. Violet, who is this adorable lady who sells delicious baked goods, which are a genuine plot point that is very important in this game, and there's a not so fun twist with her later in the story, but we'll get to that. Lastly, and next to the phone booth over here is Lucy, who it doesn't say much. I guess I lied, as there is a 5th character outside of that, and that's the operator, the individual you talk to whenever you want to save the game, which is usually at these phone booths or just phones you would find scattered throughout a level. But we'll put a pin in that character for later, as they're not really a character right now. Talking to all 4 of these individuals, we proceed to our apartment, which is the game's kind of indicator that the section of play is ending. The game is divided technically into 4 days, with this being the first day, or day 0. It's the prologue of all 4. Regardless, you come in and see new character Clarissa arguing with old character Daryl. This is where you find out that Daryl is a bit of a shifty character, but also a local businessman. He owns a local nightclub and is kicking out Clarissa for a night or 2 because she gets a bit too lost in the sauce when she's dancing there, which is a bit odd, but you know what? Do whatever you want. Clarissa as a character sucks. She's like conversationally the equivalent of folk punk, where if I have to listen to her for longer than 5 minutes, I feel like sticking my hand in a blender. She's not my favorite character of this game. But you send them off and you go up 1 more set of stairs and you see probably one of the most important characters in the entire game, next to someone else we'll talk about later, and that's Robin. Robin is Michelle's best friend, and they're kind of always just around to f*** around and have fun, though they always have a bit of a mysterious air to them. This will be elaborated on a bit more later. I know I'm baiting the hook, but just the game has a story, we have to follow it. I have to say, as we see Michelle get up to a room and me having to check every single door on the way up, I do have to say, within the first 5 minutes of booting up this game, the style, the theme, and the flavor of the game is immediately incredibly strong. This game has such a coherent and very visually appealing narrative direction, as well as just artistic direction. The central themes of love and stagnation are very apparent from minute 1, but these get so much more prevalent the further we progress, and they get cranked up in just a minute. Don't worry. So we enter Michelle's room, quite literally almost the last room in the apartment, and inside is the standard girl failure affair. You know, sad music on vinyl, shitty clothes, years out of date, lesbian entertainment magazines, and a whole list of shit to do like dishes. The place reeks of character, but we have no time to bask in it, as Michelle is sweepy and you must go to bed. This is how every major day ends and how the next one starts, and it's very fitting, as the room is almost always safe and provides comfort in its stasis. Now, I say almost always safe because, hello, green ominous door that I totally could green screen something cringe onto. What are you doing? Oh, hello, sleep paralysis demon. How can I help you? This entity is a monster you will come to know and either love or detest throughout the game, but I won't rush it. Love takes time. This pink bitch speaks about how they were attracted to you because they sensed your loneliness, which is okay, cool. I know I emit an aura of no bitches, but you don't gotta rub it in. Things escalate with, you know, screaming in their face and them jamming a weird knife hand directly into my dome, which, okay, Michelle now has a third eye because she wakes up immediately from this horrible dream, so it's not actually a dream, or maybe she's still dreaming, we don't fully know yet. Spoilers, it's not a dream. So she wakes up only marginally less horrified, with her sleep paralysis demon now banished to whatever hoary nether dimension they came from. Though, third eye, it's gonna be a thing for pretty much the entirety of the game. Regardless, you can look around the room, and you find almost no difference between when you went to bed and afterwards, and you'll be greeted by Daryl when you actually leave the room, and then you finally piece together the final piece of the puzzle, that he's the definition of a chaotic neutral himbo. The bro has a head full of rocks and a heart full of moral ambiguity, and speaking of, he won't let us pass because apparently having a woman cross your path in a hallway is bad luck. Understood, King. So I wander the other way to to the roof, which allegedly is where Robin and Michelle tend to hang out and just get shit-faced off of just shitty beer. And the door is open? It is, but this isn't the normal door to the roof. This is a door to some bougie hotel room. Okay, since we only have one option, we enter. And you enter a bougie hotel. Weird, but not entirely unexpected. There is your bed and a few other mattresses. There is your teddy bear and, weird. Okay, I'm dropping the pretense. This is one of the most interesting places you can enter, and it's only going to show up a few times in the game. Basically, this place, in order for you to enter it, a lot of otherworldly beings have to pull a lot of otherworldly strings. This is the lair of the Dream Eater, and it's quite beautiful. There is a weird chimera creature plastered on every painting, and they're weird. They're just a centaur with angelic wings for arms. There are other paintings here which you can see, but we shall get into them later as they become more and more relevant by then. For now, we wander this rather opulent location and try to figure out what exactly is going on. See, in-game, Michelle thinks that this is actually just a dream and she's still dreaming, but genuinely, how often are they actually dreaming when they say shit like that in a game? Actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of like a 50-50 toss-up. It's like, either it's not a dream and she's just saying it to emphasize how bizarre the situation is, or the entire game is inside the head. Bonus points if it's both. But I'm getting too sidetracked. You enter the next room, and it's equally filled with a bunch of beautiful... Okay, that is a shitload of blood. It looks like something was killed and hastily dragged under the couch. It does kind of provide an interesting literal centerpiece to this room. I didn't really piece that together, what was under the couch up until this point, but once you play through the entire game, you kind of start to piece together these little things about what everything is. It will make sense soon enough. We won't get into it now, but you will understand eventually. Walking forward, you see a save point phone and, this dude. Big black sludge bird amalgamation, who honestly is quite polite, saving real quick. I noticed there is something on the other end of the phone for once, the operator. Someone I mentioned earlier, and well, you get talking to them for realies now. Though, you will get more from them later, so I won't go too in depth with them now. I'm just excited to talk about them later. But yeah, you speak with the Birdman next to you and you find out that he's the Dream Eater, a demon who lives totally not in the underworld, but regardless, he is genuinely quite charming and well-spoken. You can ask him a bunch of questions and he reveals that he is the Dream Eater. He can see the future and past by consuming the dreams of others that he finds. And alongside that, this is his domain. He tells Michelle she is in fact not dreaming, shocker, and to who exactly that individual who invaded our domicile was. Well, not exactly, but basically we find out they are quite powerful and that's about it, but we will find out more about them later. The last thing they ask is that when the chips are down, what is she going to choose? Love, personal gain, destruction, or you can be a non-committal bitch and just not respond to the question. With a little hesitation, I choose love, for I am a lover of all things. This is a good example early on, how the game will kind of leave you with these very pregnant pauses, these questions that are left hanging that you have to kind of figure out what the implications are for yourself. This is so that you as an individual can piece together your own response in order to attach yourself to the meaning of the game at your own pace. I do think that it's got a strong message, but we will get more into it as it develops. I don't want to spoil my feelings here. With a pleasant conversation out of the way with the Dream Eater, he asks us to have a seat around the room one last time and get comfortable, and we do, on every chair in the room. And it's quite, I don't know, it kind of nice. You know, the blood stains really pull the room together, I guess. This is where we enter the library afterwards, following the Dream Eater. He wasn't really ready for company at this point, so he has to go around tidying up his books. So while he's doing that, we begin to kind of just wander around, learning lore tidbits, as well as picking up this really weird statue of that weird chimera thing. So this is where we kind of learn the main lore tidbits of the game. Now, I'm going to be piecing these together with some of the information we learn later, but in general we find out that the core fundamentals of angels and demons is that angels tend towards apathetic desires with a sense of internal fulfillment, while demons become demons because they were angels that lost that sense of fulfillment. Now they can lose it by being cast out of heaven and then feel literally something missing in their life because they're no longer in that specific position, but there is always this obsessive trait. So angels always are focused on rules and and tasks that suit the needs that are above them, while demons become obsessed with singular tasks and breaking the rules in order to acquire what they feel they need. Angels that were cast out of heaven basically become obsessed with something to fill the void that God's light left them, and thus most of them become weird, gross, unruly monsters, but not all of them. Though they still have a spark of divine radiance because all demons were angels at some point, most demons just have a weirdly obsessive personality. Speaking of, man, Dream Eater has a lot of statues of this weird horse bird man. That's crazy. You read some books and you gather some intel. There is a peculiar area that the Dream Eater stops you from entering because it's not tidy, and at a quick glance there appears to be corpses. Tucking that in the memory banks for later. It will be on the test. Make sure to keep this note down. Snagging that relic I mentioned earlier and reading a couple of the books that I mentioned earlier. You meet up with the Dream Eater and he takes you into the next room on your merry little adventure, and he's trying to kill you. Good. Fantastic. Apparently the Dream Eater can see the future, as I mentioned, a little bit more than he really wanted you to know, and knows that you have a strong pull on the events to come. So he cannot allow that to come to pass, and this introduces the next set of main mechanics that you're going to be engaging with, which is sprinting, weird fixed camera angles, very similar to very classic survival horrors, and the fact that even the biggest enemies can't one-hit kill you, though they do a lot of damage, which is a really nice thing to really instill in the player early on, because insta-death is never really fun. At least for me, I never really find the risk of just having one fuck up and then boom, you have to reset your save. So yeah, we outrun this monster with the actually pretty fun sound design, only getting away barely with the help of some entity with very opulent feathers and only being described by their gentle voice. Who on earth could that be? We'll figure it out soon. I'm here to guide you through the story and tell you why the game is awesome, because we haven't even gotten to the main gameplay section yet. We've only been introduced to the main mechanics to build up to it. I think you guys are going to really enjoy the gameplay. So, with that all being said, that wraps up the prologue of the game. And now we get into day one. So, with the prologue well and truly over, you are now left with day one, the first day of the game, and where you finally are introduced to pretty much all of the core mechanics of the game itself you're going to be dealing with for all of it. We'll cover them as they come up, but this section starts as the prologue did, with Michelle at her place of work, though this time she is being the chatty bitch to someone else who seemingly doesn't care. This person being Lucy, who is, as always, incredibly talkative. See, Michelle is still kind of freaked out about what happened last night, thinking it was a dream, and just an incredibly vivid one, and she just assumes she fell out of bed, giving her this massive scar that's on the top of her forehead. It's not, but yeah, it's totally a third eye, you know. Lucy leaves after being thoroughly bothered, I think, and you are left to close up shop and enter the next social section of the game. To say it kicks off with a bang is an understatement, because you walk out to see Daryl and Clarissa beating the ever-loving shit out of someone in the middle of the street. With 3 goons behind him, he chastises the man over stealing from him at his place of business, and tells this gay polycule he refers to as Cerberus, which is kind of a kick-ass name, to take this man to the kitchen before dragging him off into nowhere. Now that's ominous, but you know, cannibalistic undertones aside, you kind of ask him for a bit more context, and he says it just involves his second job. See, he owns the local nightclub, but in order to make a little bit extra cash on the side, he has a even better paying second job that he refuses to elaborate on. He kind of treats you like shit, and then you just sort of move on without him really answering any of your questions about what happened last night. This is kind of when you notice the ghosts that are just sort of floating around. See, Michelle can sort of see them, but not really. So she chalks it up to just hallucinations before entering Marty's record store. And can I just say the music in this game is so goddamn good. But especially the music in Marty's record shop. It's one of my particular favorites of the recurring tracks that you hear in the game. It kind of captures the weird alt culture punk rock vibes of the game very well. You walk up and pester Marty, which summons Robin from whatever nether dimension that they exist in, probably basically between the floorboards, if I'd hazard a guess, they seem concerned for your well-being, especially when you reveal your dreams to them. When you talk about your dreams and then reveal that massive gash in your forehead, they stroll off in a huff to go to the underground train station nearby, which Marty is quite displeased with because his research says that the underground railway train whatever station is actually a portal to the underworld, and Robin promised to take him there when they had a chance to do so. And I will state, once again, he's not 100% wrong about what the train station is, but, you know, Robin's never gonna take him there. You poke him for some more exposition about this world, and you can kind of get a bit of the world building. A lot of the characters you talk to build a lot of the world in a way that seems very natural, and they talk about it in their own kind of quirky way. See, Marty, as a hobby, likes to collect rare demon and angel artifacts. Yeah, okay, so that's gonna come up later. Don't worry, we'll get there. But you leave Marty's shop and head to the railroad. I guess Robin's already been here, haven't they? Jesus. They tore this gate open pretty easily. Apparently they are looking for some form of artifact that might be hidden in the underground, but that's going to be kind of a key aspect to the main plot of the game that we will get into a little bit later, actually. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to the True and Blue gameplay sections of Sorry We're Closed. As I said before, the game is divided into 3 days. Each day is divided into a social section to start the game off, the gameplay segment, that with most times at the end having a bit of a wrap-up section. You can tell when you're in a gameplay segment when the little health bar appears at the bottom of the screen. It's basically the equivalent of the tutorial prompt saying hold shift to run for the first time in a horror game. It just immediately primes you to understand what's about to happen. But walking into the train station, you see Robin, and they are a bit different. As well as can be best described as the silhouette of some murder that happened with an axe. You walk up to Robin to kind of get a better view of it. God damn! Alright, I guess we don't wear pants now, that's cool. But yeah, this is where the beans are kind of spilled all at once. You see, Michelle? Super cursed. Has a third eye now and can see the demon world when she's in the human world, and can see the human world when she's in the demon world. You're not really told why this is a bad thing, but when you go over and use this power to see the memories of a strong event that happened not too long ago from that mirage, you see that the lady that is committing said axe murder and then huffing money like it is a drug, has a suspicious head scar on her head, which likely does not bode well for you and your sanity, but regardless, they run off like the adorable little scamp they are, trying to grab more cash like Mr. Krabs, and she's screaming about how much she wants more money and more investors. This is what we call in the business foreshadowing. Alright, fellas, so pick up the axe she dropped, compliment Robin on them thighs, and this is where the game actually begins for realies. How the gameplay works is very simple, but it has a lot of depth. Basically, there is the third person walking around that you do. Fixed camera angle similar to that of a Resident Evil, or perhaps a Silent Hill would be a better example here. But once you enter aiming mode with the standard kind of first person shooter controls, you know, if you're using a mouse and keyboard, it's right click. If you're using a controller, I would assume it's using the left trigger, but I used mouse and keyboard, so I don't know. But regardless, once you start aiming, you go into a first person mode where you can no longer move around, but you aim with whatever weapon you have equipped and can swing at whatever enemies within the range of the weapon that you have that is on the cursor that's there. Think something like a Killer 7 or a Resident Evil Dead aim, which if you don't know what both of those games are, play those games right now, you are uncultured. But regardless, the main gimmick of this game is the third eye switching, where you can activate your third eye at any given moment that allows you to open up a field around you that allows you to see the alternate world that you are not a part of. Demons and enemies that walk in that range are now translucent to some degree, but you can see these little icons that resemble glass hearts. If you shoot those glass hearts, those are weak points and they do massive damage to the individuals that you shoot. But the trade-off is you can no longer damage an enemy by hitting them anywhere else. You can only hit their weak points. There is another system that aligns with this, but this comes later and it is a story beat, so we'll cover it when we get to it. If you want to just hit them normally, you can do small amounts of damage, but you're going to be wasting ammunition, so this game definitely rewards you for precision shooting, making it almost a puzzle shooter with that layer of gameplay. And also, there's a lot of puzzle solving by switching back and forth between your third eye sight and your regular sight. So, Robin asks us to meet them a bit further into the train station, so this is where the first level truly begins. Breaking some boards, chopping down some ratmen, and now, as we kind of get into the actual meat of this game, you're going to see why I actually adore it. I really like the story of this game. I find it is succinct and is able to tell a lot without saying as much, but the thing that drives me to keep playing this game and actually do multiple playthroughs is I actually really love the gameplay. It combines a lot of elements from games I grew up with, as well as a bunch of games that I'm currently playing. Specifically stuff like Killer 7, things from Suda51's catalog. You also have some of the weird elements from Silent Hill Origins, but we'll get into that a bit later. It's fun, it's snappy, it's very easy to learn, it's basically a puzzle shooter, and I'm like 80% certain that just by playing it, it's boosted my credit score a little bit. Hallways with fixed camera angles like classic survival horrors, gameplay that would make Suda51 want to come back and make a slightly coherent game, and the world switching mechanic that is kind of what I wanted from Silent Hill Origins. I mentioned it like a second ago, but Silent Hill Origins had this whole mechanic where you'd stare in a mirror and go to the other world, or stare in a mirror and come back to the real world, and it was always awkward. So the ability to basically do the same in this at a whim just by pressing the spacebar is awesome. This game is pretty solid. But enough gushing, we enter the train station for realies now and end up kind of getting our bearings. There is a lot of basic concepts fed to us early on, but I'm not just here to walk you through the whole game. You figure it out yourself. Play through the game yourself. I'm not here to substitute your experience. You find some healing items, find some bullshit enemies, and then you find, this guy, a massive eyesore. Yeah, that tracks. But this guy appears every day to impede your progress and hit you with some unwanted sass. You have to hit him in the eye in order to get him to remove himself from the door, but when you try to hit him with the axe, he just closes it, making him impervious or some shit. Switching to the human world reveals something cool that he's just a bunch of eye graffiti on the wall, which I think is a neat detail. But he does hint that he has terrible vision past 5 feet, so he can't tell if you're aiming a weapon at him past then. Remember that. You meet up with Robin, hi Robin, and they give you your first and likely the best ranged weapon that you'll ever have in the game, the Hellhound. A pistol that growls at you and demands that you pet it whenever you reload it. Simple shooting, simple shit. You also get promised that if you succeed in your training with Robin, they'll give you their moldy sandwich. Yummers. Training done, gun acquired, sandwich due. Robin won't be following us though, as they have to look through this room for something, some kind of angelic relic that they're hunting down for. This is a plot point for later, which they will elaborate on later, not now, whatever. You are now left to wander with your gun in hand, and oh hello Silent Hill 1 reference, crying bathroom. Godspeed, I'll leave you to it. You go say f*** off to the eyesore, shoot it in its big dumb eye, see another Silent Hill reference of big sword demon dragging it behind locked off area, and get our first game over, which might I add, god damn it, but yeah. Here is kind of the crux of what happens in these gameplay segments. There's a bit of backtracking, there's an obvious kind of puzzle where you have to collect things, put them together in the right order. There are small side quests that you have to accomplish along the way as well. You're going to learn a lot about the main boss or the main story of each level during each day, during each gameplay segment. You will pick up new mechanics, new ideas, and every single day kind of builds upon the days prior with new mechanics and new remixes of the things that you've had to learn. So, in this specific area, I'm not covering anything, especially the side quests. You're gonna have to do that yourself because, well, I'm not here to substitute your playthrough of the game. It's really fun, and I would highly suggest it. I'm not going to cover the side quest, just the main story, because I want to have a fun conversation with you guys at the end. So the main thing that you learn throughout this segment of backtracking, getting everything you need to get a password, to return power, to the monorail, train station, whatever, is that, you know that money bitch? Yeah, that's Jenny. We read about her earlier, and you find small documents throughout here that she was a missing millionaire who defrauded quite a lot of and stole a lot of pensioner money. She apparently was affixed with the same curse as you,
third eye, and so on. But she is a bit more unstable. I think it's actually quite implied that the curse makes you more likely to act out and strengthens certain core aspects of your personality, which for Michelle, depression and fatalism, fortunately, not the traits the curse chose to magnify, but unfortunately for Jenny, it's greed and thinking that having enough money is basically the only thing you need to do to get by in life. I mean, not inherently incorrect, I guess, but, you know, you're going about it in a way that's a bit cringe and uncomfortable to look at, but yeah. Regardless, finishing a puzzle involving wandering around the facility to get all the power back to it's stupid and complicated and whatever, just play the game. You get the password, open the door, and then you meet up with Robin once again. They say they have found an artifact, albeit it wasn't the artifact they were looking for, and they ask you to meet them on the train as they have quite a lot of things they wish to show you and a present they want to give you, and I'm one for presents, so yeah, this is where you are going to go back to the train station and meet up with them. This is also where they are going to introduce to you the final mechanic that you need to actually play the game. After this, you don't really need anything else, but in the future, there's going to be nothing but remixes of this mechanic as well. So yeah, it is kind of important, so let's get to that. When on the train, I mean this with no hyperbole, this is where the game turns from a fun 6 into the amazing 8. See, the train takes off, and this is where the shooting mechanics, if you hadn't had time to practice them enough before, get more or less ingrained in you. They kind of have to be at this point, because you have to meet Robin at the head of the train. You now have to fight your way through to the front to meet them. This section shows you how switching to first person completely turns the game on its head. It literally changes how you play the game, as it is a straight-up shooting gallery now. And as you can tell with my progression, I found out just how fun this kind of gameplay is. It's very intuitive and makes every enemy a high-speed puzzle, essentially, so it's just so fun. You learn that the literal best way to get through enemies is to target their weak points, because you're just going to be wasting bullets if you just shoot them without doing so. But yeah, and you also learn that you can only shoot them if they get closer, so it's high risk, high reward type shit. I adore it. But yeah, the gameplay of this game is a treat. You make your way to the front, or at least get close to it, and Robin is in fact there. They found a relic for you, and it is the coolest shit ever. Like a new toy, they hand you the Heartbreaker. It is an attachment that goes on the front of the Hellhound pistol that you have. You have to shoot an enemy's weak points to charge up its meter and break enough hearts for it to be satisfied, and then, boom, you have the ability to use the Heartbreak shot. It kills almost all normal enemies in one shot, and fun fact, some enemies in the game can only be killed with the Heartbreak shot. Even if you hit their weak points, they just get stunned for a little bit. But more importantly, it's used to deal with, larger enemies, but we shall get there. Oh, and you also find out that Robin, in fact, has a boyfriend, sort of. It's a bit of a situationship, I guess. But yeah, they suggest you go find this man by the name of Benedict. Robin's been dating him for like 500 years and kept it a secret from Michelle. Okay, rude, but whatever. So, after getting the Heartbreaker and hearing about Benedict, we see another vision of Jenny running with her crack money. She runs into our sleep paralysis demon from earlier, though the demon evokes Jenny's sight to make her look at them because she refuses to. And holy shit, this bitch is serving on a silver platter, by God. Anyhow, now we know the true-ish form of your paralysis demon. The Duchess. They have infected Jenny with the same curse, gave them a third eye, and it is all in an effort to get them to fall in love with them. The Duchess desires love above all else. But unfortunately, Jenny only believes in that one oh so famous Wu-Tang quote, and that is, cash rules everything around me. Kareem. yeah, people in this genre of YouTube totally listen to Wu-Tang. Cool, whatever. But yeah, the Duchess is annoyed because Jenny rejects them, and instead of even looking at them, refuses to do so, having their third eye forcibly opened in order for them to even have a chance of looking at them. In refusing them, and also, just being kind of weird and crazy, the Duchess rips out their eyes. Well, not the third one, but, the rest of their eyes, and makes the curse go fully active now. And this is when you find out that, Jenny isn't doing too great, and in the next few cars, you see what happens to Jenny. They have the face of those little rat demons that you've been fighting. So you see what happens if you let the curse run its course. You turn into some kind of unthinking monster, and we probably ended up killing her along the way, so So, yeah, it's probably not even that powerful of a dip. Wait, what's that sound? Oh. Well, Robin's dead, and here's Jenny, a giant rat boss, and the first boss of this game. But the thing I want to point out first, other than, rip Robin, this boss's theme has lyrics. Yeah, to say my jaw dropped about how every boss theme is actually a song about the boss's motivations. Man, that shit is awesome. I love that shit in Metal Gear Rising, and I love that shit here. And the closer we get to Jetstream Sam in any property, the better. But yeah, this is where the combat actually fully clicked for me, and now you have access to every main mechanic of the game. From here on out, it's just slight modifications or maybe a new gun. This boss fight is cool, which I would assume is also a reference to Resident Evil 2, the final William Birkin train fight at the end, but I could be wrong. It does have similar vibes. Since Jenny is a super demon, you gotta hit her with the heartbreak shot 3 times instead of just once to finish her off, which is easily done. Unfortunately, this doesn't uneat Robin. Killing Jenny, crashing the train, and grieving the loss of your best friend, it's kind of a somber moment, but you do remember the last thing Robin said to you before getting got, and that is to find Benedict and, find out how to figure out this curse. So you're a bit directionless at the moment, but fortunately for you, there is a direction to go. Not by your own choice, but it's the only one you have. In the train station, another one of those hotel doors has opened up for some reason to a place that is not the Dream Eater's domain, but yeah, so with that, you now have the ability to leave and potentially find Benedict somehow. This door leads to kind of the end stage social encounter of every gameplay section. Every day ends off with you going to the Duchess's hotel. See, they are a great and powerful demon. Probably the most powerful demon topside of hell, to be frank. They are a fallen seraphim, methinks, which, yeah, well, you'll see why my line of thinking is that later, but don't worry right now. But they are on a quest to fill the ache in their soul, a certain lack of love that I've mentioned before, and because Michelle has a chronic lack of bitches in her life, they were drawn to her. Entering the hotel, we see a few familiar faces. First of all is the Duchess, who's fucking serving in every scene they are in, I swear. They kind of give you the rundown of a few things we already knew. One, you are cursed. You have a few days before the curse fully sets in, and you are either going to turn into a little rat-looking thing, or go completely insane, or die. One of those, or all of them, who knows. So, you have to find a way to break free, but the Duchess does not take kindly to rejection, and upon asking if you've come to profess your love to them, they kindly turn their hand into a chainsaw and start chasing you a little bit, which is a pretty common weapon for them. They're not exactly the most stable of individuals, but realizing causing permanent damage to someone you wish to have a lifelong love affair with might actually be a horrible idea. They let you roam around the hotel for a while with a bit of a warning that they can't wait forever, but they are a little patient in your regard. Considering they assume you're going to be staying here pretty much forever at some point, yeah, they might as well just let you do whatever right now. It's not like you could hurt them yet. As you will likely fall madly in love with them, you just kind of are allowed to do whatever. But yeah, this place is wild, and I'm only gonna touch the surface for the sake of clarity and the sake of speed. But you basically run into a lot of the enemies you would face in the normal gameplay segments here, basically in their off hours. Speaking of off hours, look who it is, the massive eyesore, who lore dumps about his tragic backstory about being a fallen angel who became addicted to torture. But I'm a petty bitch, and well, f him for blocking my way earlier, and I know what you're gonna do later. Make me run the gauntlet and fight enemy waves on a timer? Bullshit, video game ass looking shit. I don't care. Nah, that guy. Since I have no rock to throw at his eye, we leave him to his eyeball shit and discover some attendants. Fabulous as always. And I gotta say, when you activate your third eye to see the human world while you're here, the place is actually decrepit and rotten. To say my jaw dropped when that happened is an understatement. It's such a cool idea. The rot underneath a veneer of gold is such a fun theme and fits the Duchess as a villain so well. You enter the main foyer and meet a whole mess of people people. Daryl, apparently, his second job is securing meat and kind of being the human hand of the Duchess for the hotel's residents, essentially. So the inferred cannibalism I mentioned earlier, yeah, that's not inferred. It's actually just cannibalism. You see that he's actually under a lot of pressure to serve the Duchess, and thus kind of gives you an understanding as to why he's kind of an asshole. Kind of. Oh, and it turns out the gay polycule is actually a bunch of werewolves named Cerberus, which is cool. And the biggest surprise is that you find Clarissa, whom I hate. We hate Clarissa here. Look into my eyes. We hate her here. She sucks. And it turns out she used Daryl's club to murder demons in her free time as just a bit of a hobby and is plotting to kill Daryl now that he kicked her out, finding out that that's what she was doing, which even if Daryl tried to curse us to a fate worse than death, I still like him a little bit more than Clarissa. Speaking of, we get a few more sympathy points out of Daryl when we find out that he doesn't really have any friends because of his weird, rough external self. The only person that really likes him is his boyfriend Oakley, whom I remind you is a cinnamon roll of a human being. There is Jester Dan, who is an annoying prick who tries to go do the entire game. There is the TAD, or Tad, as I like to call him, because it rolls off the tongue better. You have Chef Armando, and yes, I am glossing over a lot of these characters because though they are really fun, they aren't super relevant to the plot outside of side quests that don't really contribute much, and a few upgrades you get. Like Tad just lets you sell artifacts to them, and they give you Yowzas, which, yeah, the currency of the game is called Yowzas. It's whatever. But basically, you sell them a bunch of artifacts or special items that you find throughout the game. They give you currency. You spend it on upgrades like stronger pistols, bigger ammo magazines. You know how it goes with these types of games. Then you kind of make Michelle look a bit more like the Terminator in appearance. That's about it you need to know about Tad. Time to f*** off home, but unfortunately, as you're about to leave through the front doors, you are stopped by a familiar face? Or rather, familiar faces. It's the operator. The operator's design is just perfect. Most of the designs in this game are pretty good, but the operator just oozes personality. There are two people. One side talkative, well-spoken, and almost similar in scope to that of like a Faustian demon, and the other completely taciturn and almost unspeaking, usually staring at you with their eyeless sockets and constantly checking their phone. The former constantly tries to offer you deals, dangling meat in front of you to get you to align with them, but we're skipping ahead a little bit. They offer to drive you to the church to meet up with Benedict, Robin's boyfriend. The car ride with them is intense. They are holding a lot more cards than you are at any given time. They know more than you and are trying to not let it be shown too much. They see your abilities as something very useful in the right hands. The operator wants to take down the Duchess with your help, but in exchange for your submission, your help, they offer you something they think is going to grab your attention quite a lot. They offer you a chance to be with your ex-girlfriend again, probably using some kind of unethical mind magic to bring her back into your life. Above game, this is pretty messed up. Hot take, but I think free will is kind of important, so the decision to turn them down was pretty easy every time they offered it, because they're gonna throw it at you a few times. But yeah, I said no, duh. Well, as close to no as you can this first time. They said to think on it, when to be completely fair, I don't really need to think on it. I need to get away from this creep. As if the situation couldn't get any weirder, we find out that the true identity of this demon is Lucy. That makes a lot of sense for some reason. But yeah, after that car ride, they drop you off at the churchyard, and you are on to continue your search for Benedict, to break the news to him that his partner is dead, eaten by a giant rat, and you're indirectly responsible. Heading into the church, you are greeted to the opposite of the Duchess's palace. You see a dilapidated temple, but when you switch to your third eye, it is gilded and filled with weary spirits who are trying their best to just survive. Apparently demons eat these things, and demons can't stay in the church for too long without starting to feel a little bit of pain. Going up to the pulpit, you meet Benedict, and I love this dude. He's such a fucking dweeb, wearing some graphic tee and a toga with sandals. Bro looks like like me on my off days, which I vibe with. Apparently, he is such a nerd, he can actually code formula to predict the future in some way, shape, or form. No, they don't ever elaborate on it. I still think it's funny. Michelle, however, does not comment on it or think it's funny. She, in fact, actually begins to lose her goddamn mind as she rolls on the ground, becoming so stricken with grief and very sad that Robin is dead and it's her fault. Yeah, it sucks, but oh, hey, Robin, you're not dead. Cool. Well, glad we had to mull over that for a grand total of 15 minutes. Anyhow, meet and greet over. You, Robin, and Benedict make a plan to meet up tomorrow morning after Benedict can run some calculations on how to break the curse and defeat the Duchess. But for now, there isn't much to do. You can talk to Benedict, you can learn a little about his relationship with Robin. You also find out, apparently, if a demon and an angel love each other and spend too much time together, they actually become human, meeting in the middle, and lose all of their power in the process, which is going to come into play later, I promise. Benny here gives you a key and tells you to skedaddle. No point in being worried and tired. You leave the church and run into some, well, angels. They are arguing. One of them, Chamuel, which I wish that name was easier and more imposing to say, but that's actually a real angel. Looks really familiar, I should also state. He is having a dilemma, apparently a lover's quarrel, which is costing him his space in heaven. Something about his boyfriend causing him to lose the light of God or something. The other angel, simply referred to as Beloved, is actually scolding him to get him to stop seeing his boyfriend. It's complicated, and it's causing Chamuel much consternation. They simply see Michelle audibly go, ew, and then leave you alone. This is going to come up quite a lot throughout this game as it kind of revolves around the main theme of the game, but we will cover that a little bit later. Alright, not much left for us to do today, so we go through the courtyard, find out that the key that Benedict gave us actually opens up a shortcut between the church and our street, go back home saying hi to a few people along the way, also meeting a new person, Stacy, a semi-important character, still fun, I really like them, they're kind of small. Also, we got Postman Creed, the demon postman. I love him, and I always narrate him in my head with a Cockney accent. He's kind of cool. Well, anyway, let's go up the stairs, and it's Betty by you again. Get out of my bed, you 7-foot succubus. Okay, they have a monologue to tell you that the curse will set in 2 more days, so it's better to confess your love now so you can get it over with and be with the Duchess forever. There is a pretty interesting back and forth, I should note, between Michelle and the Duchess. I know I shit on the Duchess a little bit and call them scary. They are, but I like the dynamic that they have with every other characters. It's kind of like watching those videos on YouTube of like a tiger playing with like a rabbit or a bird that landed in their cage. It's like deep down, you're like, oh, this is really cute. That tiger probably is very domesticated, but something in you knows that if anything goes wrong, that could get very violent really quickly. But with talking to the Duchess, you kind of, whenever you talk with them, they're not looking to be in love with someone. They are in love with the concept of being in love. They're desperate to find it. Michelle, weirdly enough, kind of understands this in a way, but we can dig into that a bit later. Though the Duchess is a proud and powerful being, whenever you speak with them, I can't help but feel sad for them. They don't get it. They are like a child trying to play with a toy they are too young to fully enjoy. They want love, but don't know what love really is. We will add to this a bit later, as it is a central theme of the game, but you banish the demon back to their little hotel and finally get some sleep. At the end of each day, you get kind of this pink zone wrap-up segment discussing your choices that day and the potential ramifications therein. I'm only bringing this up now because, I'm probably just not going to bring it up ever again after this, aside from, one small detail, and that is the Dream Eater kind of makes a cameo each night to do something nefarious or some shit. But yeah, the busy work out of the way, day 2. Things immediately kick into high gear as less than 12 hours later, Lucy appears once more to bother you at work in order to ask you again if you'd be willing to work with them to deal with the Duchess. But they phrase it in such a creepy and nefarious way of hey, you ready to get your ex back? Which it is, no, ew, gross, tomato, brick.
Hey,
Now that we are properly into day 2, I'm gonna bait the hook a little bit here in a way that most YouTubers usually don't. See, outside the door, Oakley asks you to do something. He is having a health inspector over at his restaurant today, and you need to keep Daryl away, because Daryl is not the type to take criticism well, especially if it's about anything involving Oakley. But Clarissa, on the other hand, wants you to encourage Daryl to burst in right now so that they can be broken up or some shit. You actually walk into Daryl's bar to see that he has a gift, which he refers to as a hamster, but is actually a rat who will eventually get named Mimi, and as someone who has pet rats, I love this goddamn animal so much. But there's the thing, I'm not covering this side quest. I will not tell you how things progress and wrap up if you complete it on the one particular side. You gotta play the game yourself. Also, this is for the sake of time and making sure that this game gets more people playing it, because it's genuinely a fantastic game. Anyhow, a side quest we will be engaging in, because it's kind of a main plot, is Chamuel's love quest. See, on your way to meet up with Benedict and Robin, you find yourself seeing Chamuel, who is swooning over their lover. See, the dilemma is that their demon lord whatever boyfriend wants them to stay as they are. Immortal demons with severely limited contact. Chamuel wants to hard commit to being together and become human, grow old, and eventually die. I think it's a beautiful sentiment, so I encourage this behavior. So Chamuel trusts me with a letter to deliver to his BF. Their domain is in a place between the underworld and Earth, so angels have a hard time going there, so womp womp. You gotta do it. And I totally don't forget to deliver the letter in this playthrough. Totally. How on earth could that even be possible? How could I Anywho, you run up the church courtyard, hop into the cathedral, say hi to that prissy bitch beloved, and then finally meet up with Robin and Benedict to figure out what to do next. Weirdly enough, it's actually kind of simple and very video gamey. Basically, as Robin flicks something kind of gross and slimy at you, you realize it's Jenny's third eye. Ew. You immediately want to vomit, but also feel significantly stronger and more resilient. So with a few more eyes, you should be able to defeat the Duchess. Win your freedom, so on and so forth. You know how it goes. Very, very video gamey, because now the game is basically a monster of the week each day that you wake up. Each of the 3 days, find another person, steal their eye, so on and so forth. Because Benedict's calculations determine that you just need 3 total extra just to do it. He also finds the location where you're likely to encounter one of the curse victims, and it is an abandoned local aquarium. Gross, but doable. You saddle up and f*** off all the way over with Robin to go DI some poor woman. Hopping in their car and having a bit of a serious conversation along the way, Robin is looking for the key to the underworld so that Benedict can be free of his duty to guard the gates of hell. It's why they were in the underground rail station. They were trying to find what they thought was the key to the underworld, which has been lost for millennia. But instead, they found the Heartbreaker. They confide in you that they could really use a hand, and you are allowed to make a decision to state if you want to help them or not. Well, since they've helped us so far, and they've been a great friend, turnabout is fair play, so in my books, it was pretty obvious to agree with them. You arrive at the abandoned aquarium, and oh baby, it's gameplay section time, which this level is pretty puzzle heavy, so I may just breeze through it for the sake of brevity. The aquarium is kind of based around the character you came here to see. The ex-pop star named Matilda. She was kind of foreshadowed a bit with her having gone missing. You walk into the main tank area upon arriving, and boy, you get to see one of those weird, powerful memories, like with Jenny. And yeah, Matilda is just all kinds of messed up. See, apparently, once again, Michelle is shown to have gotten the short end of the stick in terms of third eye magic powers, because Matilda got super strength. She's also taking a lady out on a date that she just met. Though calling it a date is like me calling my short stint of eye contact with the goth grocery store clerk a date. So yeah, this poor receptionist for the aquarium, being confused, rejects Matilda, and Matilda doesn't take it well, as you can see by the double leg drop kick that crushes the poor lady's skull. Apparently Matilda thinks she can break the curse by proving that someone else loves her more than the Duchess ever could. I don't think that's how that works, but hey, let's see how it breaks down throughout the level. I want you all to know I am doing you all a favor by condensing this, though my poor editor is going to have to parse through probably about 30 to 45 minutes of gameplay, so have fun with that. This area is really fun, with a bunch of unique enemies that make you have to play differently than you normally would. There is a bunch of pipe moving puzzles, a little bit of backtracking, but in general, it's a really fun section. But it is quite long, so we're going to skip over a lot of it just to kind of cover the bare minimum and the basics, as it's not really important to the plot, just a bunch of rusty-ass aquarium stuff, and two significant things happen before we get the next story beat, and that is, one, you get a shotgun, which is... I mean this in the most loving way I can possibly muster. This is one of the worst shotguns I've ever played with in a video game in my entire life. I love this game, but I was using the shotgun so that I could conserve ammunition for my pistol towards the end of the game because it just doesn't line up well with how the game plays. I feel like a rifle would have been better, but I get it. They were playing into the tropes of survival horror games, which means that the alt weapon had to be kind of a shotgun, but it doesn't work because the whole gimmick of the game is precision shots to hit those little target weak spots, and the shotgun has the range of a umbrella. You just point it and it scatters in a bunch of directions, so it can ruin your combos, and it's just not as strong as it would need to be to justify being that inaccurate. My frustrations aside, I now have to deal with another headache, and that is this asshole. You know, you remember him? Massive eyesore? He's back. Hell yeah. Love that. Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay, so you have to clear out the massive eyesore, but he has protected himself behind the walls of the aquarium. His tendrils are wrapping around several generators you need to turn on in order to get the emergency power on. Here's the trick, though. You have to turn the generators on and charge them up. If they charge up, they overheat, burn his tentacles away, and then you're allowed to progress a little bit further. But to turn the generators on and charge them up, you have to A, have your third eye open, B, be within range of the generator while it's charging in order to maintain its charging, and if you step away or lose access to your third eye, put a pin in that, you no longer charge for it. Luckily, it doesn't go down, it just sticks at the percentage of his app, but yeah, that would be kind of annoying if it wasn't for the fact that wave after wave of enemies spawned in to attack you, some of them having the ability to turn off your third eye until you kill them, which, by the way, these ones can't be killed unless you use the heartbreak shot, which, yeah... As much as I want to praise it, my dude, this stuff was stressful. It's a genuine challenge, compounding on pretty much everything you've done up to this point. So, yeah. Also, I give you all my full permission to make fun of my aiming ability and shooting ability in a first-person shooter. I am so bad at aiming in a first-person shooter that you might think I actually have some kind of neurological disorder or allergy to being efficient with my bullets. The crux of all the puzzles that you have to see after this is you just have to increase the water level of a specific fish tank, the one that Matilda smashed a dude's head into. Basically, once you do that, the cracks are going to spider web and you're going to be allowed in there. Well, why would you want to be in there? Well, the door to her hotel room is in there, the one that the Duchess set aside for her. So, logic would dictate that if we get to that hotel room, we'll be able to find Matilda, carve that bitch's eye out, and, yeah, well, we're going to find out how difficult that is in a second because, yeah, after filling up the tank halfway, you get to see another vision of Matilda. This time, she did a bit of a big no-no. Well, multiple big no-nos, one of them comprising of curb stomping a dude's head so hard it exploded. She sees the Duchess, who promises to love Matilda forever, as Matilda's looking for someone to fill that special hole in her heart. And Matilda says no, because she thinks the Duchess is gross. I guess whatever. She isn't into 8-foot-tall androgynous serial killer demons, so she immediately swings on the Duchess, throwing out a goddamn rider kick, to which the Duchess replies by, catching her and, being marginally more upset than usual when they get rebuffed. Honestly, the Duchess is taking it better than usual. They didn't break out the chainsaw, but they're still a bit of a sociopath, so they rip off both of Matilda's legs, one of her arms, and fully activating the curse in Matilda before leaving her to go be hot somewhere else, I guess. Though we don't have to wait too long to see what happens to Matilda, because as we progress, we rack up another game over, and might I add, the demon dactyl things We have to get through a narrow corridor having maze, and we find another vision of Matilda, and she's looking not good, but somehow better. I mean, she got her legs, or at least new legs, and an arm replacement. So I guess she's just an octopus now with a lamprey mouth and a cockroach leg. It's weird. To be fair, she is taking it in her stride, but I can sense where this is going, and I can only see this leading to good things in my near future. I'll spare you all the details, but you go on what can only be described as one of the most traditional survival horror segments of play I've ever engaged with from a more modern game. Genuinely, it has all the hallmarks, and it's actually not as annoying as a lot of these retro throwbacks usually are to me. You see, I'm not so far up the ass of a big horror that I think Resident Evil's gameplay was perfect and shouldn't be deviated from. I recognize the tank controls are a byproduct to make the game easier to handle because we didn't really know how to do strafing controls at the time. But I'm also not such a staunch oppositionist that I think tank controls and fixed camera angles are poop from a butt. I'm in the middle. I like them, I think they can be fun, and I think that backtracking, key finding, puzzle solving do have their place in a lot of horror games. I just think that a lot of people gravitate to them so much as the key aspects that are emblematic to survival horror that it makes the game quite frustrating for me. A lot of these indie throwbacks can be a little bit grating with their backtracking. I love Crow Country for it making a twist on backtracking the same way I like this game's twist on it, where you backtrack with new items to unlock new paths, and I don't know, it just makes it feel like you're always making progress. There are classic puzzles, there is pretty tough but not too many enemy placements, which can be avoided pretty easily if you know what you're doing. It all culminates in what feels like a steady and rewarding sense of accomplishment without too much stalling. It's all really fun, and it has a central goal that you are always being pushed to finish, which is to fill up the tank so much that it will crack under the pressure. Upon filling it up to the top, you still don't have enough water to crack it, and you need to kind of go check and see what's going on. Maybe diving into the tank and swimming to the door might be, I guess, easier, or you could get Robin to do... well, that's not good. Boss fight time, baby! This is what has become of Matilda. She's become a lampreyish thing, a literal bottom feeder. Symbolism. This fight, I gotta admit, I did have trouble with to start. I got better at it once I figured out her pattern. Also, when I stopped using the goddamn shotgun, this is unfortunately where I found out that the shotgun was really not the weapon to use for this game. It's not the best, but yeah, with some sharper shooting and me vibing out to the sweet-ass boss music, which has lyrics again, I gotta say, this shit is really fun. But yeah, with enough hellish gunfire, you crack the clam that is Matilda open and sink her to the briny depths of her tank, or so you think, as she grabs you in with her, making you wet, smelly, and probably with a fishy taste in your mouth for the next couple weeks. Kind of like me when I visit your mum. I'm sorry, that was mean. Kind of like me when I visit your dad. Yeah, nailed it. And with you in the tank, that apparently is enough to shatter it. Grab Matilda's third eye after she speaks with you about her mentality. She's not the greatest person, but you do have some sympathy for her after all this. Unfortunately, you do need that eye, so out she comes. Robin indicates after the gruesome act we just partook in that there is yet another angelic signal coming from the hotel they must investigate into. But knowing their luck, it's probably just Clarissa doing horrible shit to people. So we enter Matilda's door and go into the wrap-up section of this day. Of course, we gotta beeline it to the eyesore's room. Gotta fuck with him at least once before the day is out. We learn a little lore about him, that he's not trying to stop you for some understandable reason, like if you lift the curse from yourself, you lift it from everyone else, which would stop his eternal torture. So if you lift the curse from yourself, he is very worried that it will mean that you will be the one that got away. See, no one has ever escaped the Duchess, ever. So you leaving would probably lead to them obsessing over you, probably forever, maybe just a few years at worst, but yeah, and that will lead to the Duchess torturing people less in perpetuity. But, like, in short, yeah, f him. My life is more important than your weird, gribbly mutant boner. So we continue on our quest. We go to the main hall, save our progress, say hi to Clarissa, who is perpetually mauling at how she wants to get back at Daryl. But hey now, we ain't covering that quest, so play the game. We meet up with Robin on the stairs in the next room, who is skulking around the hotel. See, you can get around easier as you're in the good graces of the Duchess and you're a human. What can you do? So it's up to you to find out the third and final victim. Cerberus going on a vacation, so they aren't really any help for you to find that. Talk to Daryl. Hi, Daryl. I hope you're having a good day, I guess. Hello, Mimi the Rat. You are my everything. Jester Dan proceeds to be one of the funniest characters in the game, and you end up finding a continuation to a plot thread you didn't even think about until now, which is, where the f*** is Violet? She was that lovely baker merchant at the beginning of the game, you know, the one who really was known for her chocolate croissants. Yeah, well, she was abducted and forced to work in the kitchen to slice up people to make cannibal meals for the demons of this hotel, while also baking pan au chocolat for the Duchess, who apparently really likes that. Which, while we're on the topic of pan au chocolat, you guys want to know something cool? So, a chocolate-filled croissant, you know, most of the world calls it pan au chocolat. Pretty simple, right? Turns out in France, there's kind of a mini turf war based on what it should actually be called. With the majority of France, though more centrally in the northern half of it, thinking it should be called pan au chocolat. But a large section of southern France thinks it should be called chocolatine. This shit was actually brought up in French Parliament to discuss the validity of the term chocolatine being used as a reference to the food. I just think, as the shit disturber I am, and from what I've heard, that it would be really fun to go to a store that calls it pan au chocolat in France and ask for a chocolatine, because apparently they get a bit curt with you. But regardless, sorry Violet, you stay here for now. I have shit to do. Anyhow, let's go see what the Duchess is up to. Oh, wow, that's fucked. Yeah, the Duchess is basically having an America's Got Talent style show with only one judge needing to give you an X, and if you fail, you don't get embarrassed, you just get grinded into hamburger meat, which this poor lady ends up getting done to her. Also, oh my god, Jester Dan, hi! Anywho, we probe the Duchess for answers, and apparently they are getting increasingly interested in us as we are the only ones to actively seek them out for conversation, which is not as sweet or endearing as you lonely f***ers would think it is. That's actually kind of a red flag. But yeah, we push for some info on another person who was almost as promising as you are, and find out that there was some individual who had spunk, fire, and a little insanity to boot. They stole the key to the Duchess's room, and that is kind of a big no-no. But the funny thing is, they actually buried themselves in a tomb caught between the world of the living and the underworld, which is very intriguing to think about, as we have heard of something similar to that. The Duchess just left them there to rot, essentially, a little bit bitter about the whole situation. Alright, cool, let's wrap up the day. Say hi to Postman Creed, say hi to a few other demons, head to my room door, which the Duchess so generously opened up for us on the way over, say hi to Robin, say hi to Robin's ass, say hi to Robin's thighs, as well as saying hi to my pillow once I rocket myself into that bed to end the day and just relax. We see a recap of everything we did that day, you know, the major decisions that kind of reflect how the story's— Oh fuck, I forgot to mail that letter for Chamuel. Shit. Well, I guess I'll just do it tomorrow? No big deal. Oh, that asshole, he took Cham's letter. What the okay, cool. I can't wait to make you taste the pavement later, asshole. You dare mess with my little bird horse? Okay, well, one mistake later, we get into day 3. The morning of day 3 is weirdly peaceful. Well, peaceful until this asshole booty claps their way up to your apartment entrance and begins to pressure you once more into working with them to get your girlfriend back and kill the Duchess, which is bullshit. You back off, you two-headed succubus. I want self-improvement, not stagnation and weird hypnosis undertones. Be gone, foul bitch, and never darken my doorstep again, ye knave. I'd rather have to pluck the eye out of several weirdos than deal with you. Our spicy monologue telling Lucy see in no uncertain terms to go f yourself over, we go out into the crowds of the streets, concluding a few storylines in the first major social segment of day 3, and, seeing a few of the fellas that we need to kind of touch base with. So to give you a snippet, helping Daryl leads to the happy ending with him and Oakley getting married, him seeing the error of his ways, realizing that he should probably stop being such a ruthless bitch, but most importantly is that it leads to Clarissa being big mad forever about being a nice person. And it also leads to kind of understanding that everybody has faults and necessities that need to be done in the moment, and with the right influences they can be corrected. But, Clarissa, right? Oh, and more interesting news, the title of this game got a bit more literal. As you mentioned half-heartedly, you couldn't go on a date with the Duchess the prior day because you had to work for the majority of the day, so the Duchess, crazy bitch they are, completely destroys your work, leading to you having no job. Cool. I can't wait to be homeless and become dependent on the Duchess for my needs as a human being. Totally a healthy foundation for a relationship. Stop by to see Marty to have him lose his mind about Robin potentially being a demon, but being the little shyster you are, you dissuade him. Somehow, I guess, but he tells you Robin found a way into the underground crypt near the old church, which was kind of where you had to go anyway, as spoiler alert, that is a portal to the midsection between the underworld and the human world. It's kind of weird. Go see Daryl one last time, and also go to see Donovan again. Michelle's favorite musician, which I kind of hope is a nod to the 60s musician of the same name. Considering the yellow suit, I'd assume is such, mellow yellow and all that. Anywho, we say goodbye to Mimi the rat and off to the church to get the final eye and end this goddamn nightmare once and for all. I should note we do stop to say hi to Stacy on the way to the church because I don't know why, but I find her so endearing. She's just kind of one of the sweetest characters in the game. But yeah, we talk to her and vague that we kind of have a date with the devil later, being a bit on the nose in a funny way, But Stacy takes it a bit literally, and since she is the owner of a local dress store, she hands us an actually quite beautiful evening dress for our date. Man, she is too sweet. Well, ma'am, I hope you have yourself a lovely day, and I get to see you later. Stashing the dress in our back pocket, I guess, because who honestly cares about wrinkles and creases in the fabric? At this point, Michelle probably has such a huge storage capacity that she has a full-ass ironing board and some magical demon iron in there with a full generator hookup for it. But yeah, we head to the church and run into Chamuel, to which I gotta say, man, I am so sorry. I meant to send your boyfriend that letter, but I totally forgot. Chamuel seems to not be so upset, as he is planning to go die somewhere due to him finally losing most of his angelic grace. He implies he may be going directly to his demon boyfriend to probably not make up and, you see how things go. They discuss how it is basically all in vain anyhow, so why not? He then asks you a question so confounding that it might be confusing to whoever ends up editing this section of the video that I pause on this for so long, because above game I legit froze up. The question Chamuel asks me is, could you love a demon? The answer is obviously yes, just look at my own track record above game. But in the context of the situation, I feel like the game is assuming that you would have at least attached yourself marginally to the Duchess to make this a harder or easier decision. But the Duchess as a character, although serving in every scene they are in, and strikes that specific balance of androgyny, uncomfortably taller than me, blonde hair and long legs that make the neurons in my brain light up like a Christmas tree on fire. The amount of red flags being thrown out there up to this point, although at some point prior in my life, I would have seen signs to go whole hog into this relationship with this succubus, it's actually made me realize that I would not really want to put myself through it. I suppose I'm projecting a bit here for Michelle, but even in her context, she is trying to move on from a bad breakup that happened years ago. She needs to learn to love herself, be happy by herself before being with someone else, and choosing to rehabilitate this psychopathic NB from some hoary nether dimension into what could be considered a passable relationship feels a bit misguided. But I also don't want to give Cham Cham the wrong idea here, because if you truly are in love with someone, you should pursue it to either learn a lesson or grow with someone. You can only truly understand how how hot the stove is if you accidentally burn your hand on it while it's on, and all that pithy nonsense. So after a bit too much deep thought, I say, yeah, I could love a demon. Probably not that one, but I totally could. Samuel seems displeased, but whatever. You give your answer and off to go see Benedict to get his blessing and find out that whoopsie poopsie, the ass connected to Robin, as well as Robin, I guess, is in danger. Oh no! They have gone into the caverns under the church to go find a heavenly artifact, a key that could in fact seal the gates to hell that Benedict has been watching over for thousands of years. Remember how that one potential significant other for the Duchess stole the Duchess's room key? Yeah, apparently it also doubles as a key to the gates of hell, which convenient. Also kind of important, methinks. Anywho, we promised the nervous dork that we are going to in fact go find and say Robin's ass thighs and I guess the person connected to them, which we rush over to the gates to the underworld to start the next and second to last gameplay section of the game. This is the crypt, the second hardest section of the game, with probably the hardest to navigate geometry. You immediately see target number 2 outside of saving Robin, and that is Gabriella. Considering there is a weird scar on her forehead, I assume she has the third eye that we're looking for, and we need to pry loose, probably with a heated spoon. Much like every other individual we've come to meet up to this point who had a third eye, she is a little bit less than sane, I shall point out, staring at a picture of likely her mother and father and going on some only mildly unhinged monologue about them, but trust me, it gets worse from here. We haven't even gotten to the part where we revive her parents as giant roach people mini-bosses, but regardless, we delve into the new area and see what new horrors await us. The crypt is probably the longest level in the game, and not really in a good way. I do like the gimmicks this gameplay section has, but there are some moments I do think that it kind of overstays its welcome. I may in fact just be a bit of a big thicky bobo who is easily confused by the most basic of logic puzzles, so there is that. But yeah, I'm gonna condense this entire area into a very tight package because it just is this massive labyrinthine dive into someone's family crypt that just so happens to be a portal to hell at the end. You follow Gabriella, who is in there to hide from the Duchess, I think, as well as taunt the dead bodies of her parents. As her parents were kind of shitty, I will admit, but she did end up poisoning them and stealing all of their wealth, so I suppose who really is the most shitty person here? She apparently killed them, took one of their more identifiable key features as a trophy, and then lived her life as an artist or some shit. So returning here, she is basically having a pretty perpetual manic episode, throwing these stolen goods back at their corpses. For her mom, it was a pearl necklace, and for her dad, it was a golden watch. By the time you show up, the dead bodies of her parents have turned into giant cockroach people, which is neat. But on the other side of the coin, you are following Robin, who is not looking so good. See, the longer Robin is down here, the more pull that hell is going to call to them. Basically, being this close to hell might drag them back into the underworld where they will never be able to escape easily. The deeper they go, the weaker they become, and if they get too weak, they just, I don't know actually, maybe they just no-clip through the floor into hell or something. The puzzles in this area use the radius of your third eye to move around a rather polite dog man statue, who's basically used as a key in order to open up certain doors as well as gain access to certain secrets. There's also backtracking and a lot of logic puzzles. I kind of mentioned that earlier, but there's a lot of them. Some of it does feel a little bit like padding, but you know, it isn't that bad. It's just what it is. It is what it is. The level isn't so long it's unbearable. It just gets kind of boring towards the middle of it, and you kind of just want to get on with it. Though it does liven up a little bit when you run into the Duchess, who is a giant right now for some reason, which I don't even know how they are down here. I thought they couldn't get down. I don't know, man. I thought the implication was that they couldn't come down here, or else they would have gotten their key from Gabriella themselves. Anywho, the Duchess is giving you the mother of all mixed signals right now, telling you how stupid your idea of love is and how cool theirs is. They are telling you how you struggling this way is desperate and also a little cute, but also pointless. But to Michelle's credit, she gives the Duchess just a fuckload of sass back for showing up down here, being pretty point blank about how she's gonna get that third eye, show up to their date, and beat the fuck out of the Duchess until she gets her freedom back. So traveling through this massive level, it kinda follows a similar design philosophy to that of the Silent Hill 2 variety, where the further you go down, the weirder the geometry gets, and the weirder the geometry gets, the further you can go down. It all escalates until you hit rock bottom, which is the absolute deepest section of where this area goes, likely right next to some massive ungodly hellmouth. You are so deep that upon another encounter with the massive eyesore, bro just gives up. He literally just says, I got nothing, and promises to leave you alone if you strike him down one more time. So you do. Fuck that guy. And enter the room where allegedly Gabriella is, but from what you can see, everything is just covered in spikes, monsters. Oh, hey, Robin, what's up? Oh, holy fuck, you do not look good. Oh, nice ass, though. Robin is at the end of the rope, but Gabriella is at the bottom of the chains that are kind of in that middle of that spiked pit there. And you have to use the heirlooms that she dumped on her parents' coffins in order to raise her up. Just kind of a typical, you need what bound her to the material world to rise the, I don't know, man, it makes no sense. But yeah, you bring her up so that you can engage in this sort of boss fight, but it is weird. As when you activate the mechanism, there is going to be wave after wave of enemy released to fight Michelle. But this time, you got a pal. Robin. And although Robin has a health bar that can reach 0, their support is kind of helpful in this situation, as they keep a lot of the enemies off you so that you can get more accurate shots. This is actually a pretty tense encounter, I should note, and makes it so that you have to utilize the mechanics of the game in a sequence that matches the threats that are on display, as pretty much every enemy that you have encountered up to this point shows up. It's pretty fun. With all that being said, once you finish running the gauntlet, you are left with one last obstacle, Gabriella, or at least what's left of her. She has put herself here, probably to keep the Duchess away, and also to put herself on a pedestal, looking like some late-stage Cenobite torture victim. Something that the Duchess will never have, but also will always want to some degree. Gabrielle is a dejected and abandoned child. This has led her to perform the riskiest actions you could imagine to accomplish her goal of being considered worthwhile in the eyes of the world around her, when in fact it's just worthwhile in her own. She didn't care if she was alone, at least she states as such. As long as someone would look up to her in some way, well, it never really mattered. That's no way to live. So you put her out of her misery, even if she would never admit that she was miserable. Take the key, take the eye, and Robin is near death. They look like they are about to keel over at any minute, but something miraculous happened. Benedict shows up to save the day and get him and Robin out of there. This is where you have to make a story critical choice, but because I'm a nice guy, I'm not really gonna have that hard of a time deciding on what to choose, because basically they're like, hey, do you want to keep the Duchess's room key so that you can skip a few things to get into her house, or do you give it to Robin and Benedict, one almost dying to get down here and the other one chained to their desk for all eternity until you find it? Yeah, the decision is kind of easy, so come on, could you say no to these two? Anywho, Benedict gets Robin out of there, and it's up to you to prepare for the final showdown with the Duchess for your freedom. Riding the elevator that Gabriella was on to her hotel room door, you are going to enter it in order to fight the Duchess once and for all. Finally dropping the funnies here, because with this third eye and finally entering the Duchess's hotel one more time to embark on this final leg of the journey, it feels different. It feels like the atmosphere is different. The air Michelle is breathing is different. She has adapted to her new life of being independent in this chaotic world and is ready to admit that she doesn't need anybody to feel whole. The Duchess has been pestering and prodding Michelle, being an outright manipulative villain, in order to get a hold of her. Say what you will about the Duchess being hot, but as someone who is basically a certified old man on the internet by, well, internet standards, I can speak from the level of an informed opinion on these types of relationships, where what the Duchess wants is not love. It was never love. What the Duchess wants is their power back. They want to feel whole and think that having someone to divest their undivided attention into will help. They want to provide for you everything everything materially you've ever wanted, they don't truly care if ever they will understand you as a whole. They don't care about you. They care about what you represent. They care about the idea of love. They wish to stay in stasis. They want to put back the pieces they lost obsessing over something from the past. They don't want to change from what they are, because lesser or greater, different won't be the same, and the same was the only thing they knew and cared about. There's a lovely manga, don't know if you ever heard of it, it's called Berserk, but there's a quote in it that I quite enjoy for this specific situation, and that is, I'm going to be paraphrasing because I couldn't be arsed to actually look up the actual phrasing, but it doesn't matter if you get all the pieces back together. Once something is lost, you can never truly get it back. Because of that, they obsess over it. That is damage. They are someone who cannot move on, and it isn't your job to help them, because on some level, you are doing the same. Michelle and the Duchess carry a similar burden, maybe not to the same degree, and they're definitely in different scopes, but the Duchess losing the light of God and wishing to go back, and Michelle losing what she thought was the best relationship she ever had, and not being able to move on, that her girlfriend could in fact do better on her own. Even if the Duchess is hurting, your actions don't exist in a vacuum, and because of that, forcing this affection on Michelle does nothing but prolong the Duchess's hurt. But it also leads to the deaths of hundreds. Michelle is not a missing piece to the Duchess's puzzle. Michelle is a person with flaws and wants just like the Duchess, angel, demon, or otherwise. So when you finally make your way to the ballroom, your evening dress on, absolutely stunning, you confront the Duchess, who has hired Michelle's favorite musician, Donovan, to play just for her. But Michelle will not be swayed. I will state the song that plays here, The Toll, is probably one of the most beautiful songs in this game, and it can't help but drum up memories of a life I no longer lead. But I'm not here to tell you my sob story, nor is Michelle. She openly challenges the Duchess, seeing through their meaningless platitudes for what they are, a thin veneer of gold over a core of rot. You challenge the Duchess for your freedom, and the Duchess does not take it well, but accepts your challenge, as it is a law that all demons must accept all challenges, allowing you one last night of rest before you fully go into your final showdown. Getting up from your seat, Michelle walks out and prepares for the night, going back to your room through the hotel door that the Duchess opened up for you. I cannot help but feel like I was incredibly dialed in at this point. I relate to Michelle, her inability to move on in a sense. We all have our baggage, and I am no exception, but in a weird sense, I found strength in her portrayal, her confidence here. But the game isn't over, as there is another section before you fight the Duchess. Because once you enter your door to your hotel room, you are once again intercepted, perhaps by accident, by the Dream Eater. Either through some kind of weird demon mumbo-jumbo or the will of one or two parties involved, you have been teleported to their domain. This is where something gets confirmed, and it's something that's been kind of dangling in front of you for the entire game, and that is that Samuel's boyfriend, the one he keeps talking about. Yeah, that's the Dream Eater. They were both angels and in love eons ago, but the Dream Eater fell. The portraits found around the game that have an individual with wings and feathers wrapping around their face, that was actually what the Dream Eater looked like prior to his fall. Now, Samuel has shown up to break things off once and for all, either to kill the Dream Eater and be done with it, or to let the Dream Eater kill them. Oh, how? Oh, hey, Jesus, put on a shirt there, bud. There's Arthur's around here. Anywho, you distract poor Samuel, which I don't know how you could look away from. Anyway, you distract poor Samuel, who is ripping into Dream Eater, and womp womp, I guess we're gonna need another horse here. Well, I guess it's time to resolve this plot line. Hopefully it doesn't get too messy. Fighting the Dream Eater in this weird buff man form, followed by running from him, is kind of interesting, as the fight is very differently structured than every other one. You cannot shoot hearts, as he has none to shoot. You have to stand on the corpse of Samuel to charge up your heartbreak shot, and then you can shoo him away for a little bit, I guess. So we make our way to the next area, and let's break down what is actually happening here, as this is a very interesting and complex dissection of this type of relationship, and there's only a little bit left to cover, so I guess I'm allowed a little bit of, I don't know, just waxing poetic for a minute here.
See, Chamuel and Dream Eater love each other very, very much, but when they are in close proximity to each other, they feel a great deal of pain, as well as shame for their affection. They slowly become weaker and weaker as they get closer and closer to each other. The angels shame Chamuel for basically him debasing himself, and Dream Eater, with the same affliction as all other demons, is obsessed with Chamuel. This entire level is about trying to prove to both of them that to change together is actually not that terrible, and in fact one of the best ways to be. Dream Eater may lash out at Chamuel, but it comes from a place where they don't want to actually hurt them, just make it so that they'll always be around and actually live a happier life. Chamuel only needs one reminder throughout this level to be reminded how much Dream Eater loves him. It's a small plush that Dream Eater made somehow of Chamuel. It's made from Michelle's fucking teddy bear, little thief, but whatever. This level begins to kind of hammer home the key themes of this game, but we won't touch upon them until the actual end of the game, but we'll get there. Shout out to the moment of the game that you're probably seeing on screen right now, where I saw a blood-stained bed filled with handprints. I went into first-person mode to get a better look, only to see an ornate and beautiful painting on the wall of Chamuel bottoming to Dream Eater, which caused me much consternation, as well as to question the fundamentals of their relationship and how anything really works. But yeah, I don't like thinking about it too much. You progress through the level after reminding Chamuel of their love and meet up with Dream Eater in his inner sanctum. Dream Eater is dejected. See, his powers were always to see the future with a decent level of clarity. He could see you. He knew this would happen, but he is trying his hardest to rage against it so that Chamuel can live a happier life without him. He loves Chamuel so much that he wants to make sure Chamuel will live forever. He never wants there to be a world where Chamuel doesn't exist, even if the Dream Eater doesn't. He knew what you would do to him if you got here, so this is his final stand. And holy fucking wall vagina, this shit is awesome. A god choir hip-hop giant demon, this is one of the coolest and yet toughest fights in the game, as this is the Dream Eater's domain. This is also a prelude to prime you for the fight with the Duchess. He throws everything at you. Enemies, himself, weapons, demon magic, and a few couches here and there. This shit is kind of hype. Anywho, this fight is really fun, but it can only end one way, with Michelle victorious as she is the protagonist, after all. What I originally thought was going to be a phase 2 ended up just being the Dream Eater on his last leg. Before you can make him bite the curb, his boyfriend shows up with one last plea, claiming that Michelle was right. It doesn't matter what happens. If they work together, they love each other, and feel good together, it doesn't matter how much they change. They will grow together and things will be alright. Michelle is thanked and sent on her merry way as Chamuel is eaten lovingly by Dream Eater. Gross. But with that out of the way, we have one last piece of business to attend to. We gotta go deal with our own demon and give the Duchess a wedgie. Luckily, the Dream Eater gives you a little door to escape from into the church. Huh, so that's what's behind that door. Wait, does that mean the Dream Eater is in hell? Oh, apparently all doors are portals and that's what, okay, whatever. Okay, cool, but yeah, you appeared seconds before Benedict and Robin were gonna put the key on the door in order to seal the underworld. Happy you made it out alive, and even happier that old Ben here can leave his post for the first time ever. He is so happy, in fact, that he gives you his halo as he's just downright ready to leave being an angel forever and just be with Robin, and lets you know that you should rest before you battle the Duchess. There is an almost electric feeling in the air, fellas. It's time to give that blonde bitch a right good thrashing. See what they're actually made of. So, we head on back home for the night, and just before Sleepy go night-night, you go meet up with Robin one last time on the rooftop of your apartment complex for a couple of beers. Talk about life, talk to Robin about how they feel about them and Benedict becoming human, and to be honest, they seem kind of chill about it, because apparently, being a demon sucks, but also being a human, if you are one, just look down, kind of sucks, right?
right. Not all the time, but sometimes. So like, you know, having the ability to die at some point does kind of put a dampen on things. But apparently they kind of look forward to that. They just want to live a happy life together with no restrictions. It's a comfortable back and forth between two friends, and it feels very appropriate to round off the last major social section of this game. It has a very nostalgic feeling to it. I think I love these characters. To be fair, most of the characters in this game are quite endearing, aside from Clarissa, but yeah, whatever. Anywho, you go back to your home, drink some free tap water to restore your health, rest for the night as we get into the wrap-up and recall segment of the dream. It's weird. This one is especially weird. This dream segment doesn't so much make you deal with the wrap-up as it's kind of the final dream segment to determine what your ending is. Inside this room is likely going to be changed depending on what your playthrough is from what I have here. Leslie, dead on the ground, likely representing that she is no longer an option. You no longer need her or desire to be with her. And with how I played the game, I can choose Chamuel and choose to love the Duchess regardless of their faults, or I can not have rocks for brains and choose Robin and choose to break the curse to become my own person and not rely on anybody. If you have been following it all up to this point, you already know what I choose. From there, we awaken in the hotel and see the Duchess is glamored up a lot. Holy shit! You are finally allowed to talk to the Duchess, not at the Duchess. It feels like you have their full attention on you, and as you can tell, you see that they are back in what I assume to be their true angelic form. You question them, and for the first time, they seem to treat you less like a hungry wolf would treat a deer and more an equal. It is intriguing, I will admit. The back and forth here is very, very interesting. It gives me this feeling, it's hard to describe. Like, this is the meeting of two individuals that did not see on equal terms, but finally, after a great deal of effort, finally do. This perspective is given a bit more credence when the Duchess allows you to ask them a few questions before the final conflict to kind of engage in the narrative a little more, but then the perspective suddenly shifts and now you are speaking from the perspective of the Duchess and you ask Michelle questions, especially about Michelle's outfit, which rightfully, they compliment them on. How sweet. Regardless, this can only go one way. This fight has been built up throughout the whole game, and now it's time to finally go through it. The Duchess's hotel is actually a fantastic level. It turns up the psychological horror elements of the game quite a lot, and actually makes me feel like this is what I would have wanted from a queer Silent Hill. It has a lot of evocative images of things that are pretty common tropes in horror. The killer running behind the shower curtains, a safe and familiar place being turned into a horrific zone of torture and terror. I don't remember who said this, but the scariest thing you can do to a man is take everything in his life and replace it with an exact copy. I think this is what the hotel represents because, well, it's the Duchess trying to put back some degree of order in their life to exert some degree of control that they would have had before. Their entire life has been shaken up, and yet they desire everything to be the same. You are here to shake that up, unfortunately. The hallways of this level have such a fun progression, going from eerie and rusted to angelic and almost holy, but something is always a bit wrong, even in the holiest and cleanest of areas, but we're skipping ahead. The Duchess can divide their body into these weird shades that will act as mini-bosses throughout the level, white ghosts that carry, a chainsaw. That's, okay. They are easily dealt with if you have actually been playing the game up to this point, but the thing to note here is when you kill one, the Duchess feels it. They are hurt, and no one has ever truly hurt the Duchess in such a way, or at least for a very, very long time, which is a sign that Michelle may actually be able to contend here with old Dutchy Poo. The puzzles, the maps, the enemies, all of these feel fine-tuned to make this level have a level of finality to it. There are only the toughest enemies in the game here, the knights that require multiple heart shots to kill, mirrored evil Michelles that, although take one hit, will run up to you and explode on contact. So, you know, there's that. Also, the chainsaw Duchesses, if I didn't make that apparent. You better be in top form to beat these enemies, as this level will hand your ass if you're not there, as you can tell by the sheer amount of healing items that I have to go through. Hell, even the puzzles require a lot of interesting usage usage of your third eye and logic to manipulate a mirrored Michelle in the room to act as a key to unlock a door, where if she gets hurt in any way, shape, or form, the real Michelle dies and you have to restart. Why the Duchess has mirrored copies of Michelle to open the doors to her room, I was going to say, I don't know, but we all know. Whatever, man. This shit is fun. It's also a really fun parallel that for pretty much the entire game you have to go down, go underground, delving into catacombs, subway stations, and deep-sea aquariums. But for the hotel, you're always climbing up, getting on elevators, going on stairs, going upwards, and dealing with things to finally get to the Duchess. Every inch feels earned, as it takes a lot of effort to do so and a lot of quick thinking, a lot of instant death traps and so on. God, this is one of those levels that makes me feel this game stuck the landing pretty well. I will state the game is a little clunky, and I'm going to cover that in my little wrap-up. Though, one of my biggest concerns was that it was just going to shit itself on the final boss in the final level, but luckily it didn't. Though, who knows? Maybe this entire game could be inside Michelle's head and be an analogy for bad lesbian sex, but what do I know, man? With no more puzzles, no more enemies, no more obstacles left, it is time for you to ascend the final elevator to meet the Duchess in their true full-powered form. They are massive with multiple arms. They will throw all of their reality-altering power at you in an attempt to make you submit. They summon the mirror Michelles. They summon cages to lock you down. A lot of their attacks are metaphors for toxic romance, and I think this works a lot. Hell, even the final boss theme, which is the only boss theme in the game, to my knowledge, that doesn't have lyrics, has a certain meaning to it. The kisses that the Duchess throws at you representing blind platitudes, things to make you unable to see the dangers and the red flags around you. Thus, if you get hit by them, they don't do much damage, but they keep you from using your third eye. The cage locking Michelle into place, representing being locked into a toxic romance. The opening of doors to bring out the mirror Michelle is them reflecting to you what they want from you, not so much what you actually are. And to top it off, as I mentioned, the final boss theme is the only theme in the game that doesn't have lyrics. And that's because there are no more words to be said. You know the perspective of the Duchess. Whether you got here and you agree with it is all that matters. I don't. And I think that shows here, as Michelle has nothing else left to say to them. It's literally rubber meets the road here, so come on, you Heihachi eyebrow having bitch. Let's dance. The fight is intense. It's willpower versus determination. And after everything you've been through in the game, it's time to end it. Small note before we finish this, I love that the Duchess can open their own third little eye to reveal what they can truly see around them, and it's a world of pure decay. The white stallions that dotted the interior of the rooms you were in before, becoming rusted sculptures of what they once were and what they can never be again. A statue long since losing its luster. With all that being said, it's only a matter of time before we put this horse down, winning the fight and returning us to the Duchess's room. They admit defeat, and this is where we see them for what they are, scared and alone. They have such a low sense of themselves that they mask it by pretending to be something all-powerful. You were the person to break that illusion. You will always be the one they let get away. They admit you have won and removed the curse, begging that you remember them as they would have always wanted to be, someone worthwhile. And that is Sorry We're Closed. This game is special. It's very clunky, its plot can be a bit disjointed, and there's obviously some writing changes that happened along the way that makes the narrative a little bit unintuitive to follow at times for some reason, but in general, this is one of those games I love to see. It is a fantastic narrative about losing love and finding personal satisfaction. The core theme of the game is very simple, and to state it in a single overly pretentious sentence, to be loved is to be changed. Throughout this game, you see characters who love has touched, and changed them in such a way that causes them to never be the same. Robin, desperate to save their boyfriend from their eternal watch, and Daryl trying to get past a bad section in life so he can finally live happily ever after with his boyfriend and pet hamster rat Mimi. The Duchess, who felt the love of God and never wanted to be without it, so they based their entire life around what they lost. And I'm not even going to touch Chamuel and the Dream Eater, that one's just obvious. Even Michelle, the central character of the game, is someone who thought they had met their soulmate, someone they thought they could
probably lived their entire life with and couldn't live without, and then suddenly they had to cope with what was likely the biggest loss they've ever had, as they had to lose that person, even being forced to see them on a daily basis as they were an actor on an incredibly popular television show. All of these people were touched by love's idea and always wanted the love they lost or could not have. But I think therein is the key resolution of the game. The driving force of the game is how you, specifically the player, deal with the idea of love and change. Do you seek it out, fill the void of what it could represent, or do you do like me and try to snuff out what was and try to focus on the uncertainty of the future to try and cope and change with how things are? How you deal with that and change is how the game's ending shapes up. I know I shit on them a bit, but I can see people truly endearing themselves to the Duchess and empathizing with their plight. But for me, I don't. I think they don't want love. They want to feel what they felt before. They want adoration, not love. They want someone to fill that hole in their heart, and they don't care who it is. Michelle was not that person. Michelle was likely never going to be that person. But I think it just goes to show how interesting and flawed that character is. I think there is a lot to get out of this game. If you give it a minute, it is a borderline psychedelic joyride through a JoJo-inspired horror nightmare, and I love it. Queer horror as a whole is something I'm likely going to touch upon on this channel quite a lot, because queer media and horror tend to intersect quite a lot. It's fantastic when it's done well, and when it's done poorly, it's comical. But I hope you all enjoyed this ride, and I hope me posting this video wasn't too much of a surprise, because I haven't been here for a little bit. I think the last video I posted was like almost a year ago now. Yeah. But, yeah, surprise, surprise, I'm not done. This video is not the only one going live this month, and I hope you are fucking ready to get blitzed, because the rollout for this channel is coming in hot, and so am I. Ew. Anywho, the final video of this month is going to be released on Halloween, so keep an eye out for that, and thank you all for once again sticking to the end of this video. And if you could spread this video around, maybe comment, share it to your friends, I would appreciate it. It's been a minute and I want to get something going here, make sure that this video is kind of self-sustaining on its own, but for now, I'm off to go and ponder my own little existence and start staring at the ceiling. And before you comment about how the game seems to cut itself short, that's because I cut it short. There is a whole ass epilogue you can engage with in order to see where your choices lead and see where the characters ended up at the end. And you even get to see a certain couple in their human forms before the game ends. I want you all to play this game, so I left out a shitload of side content, and there's a lot of stuff that you would get by playing the game. I only covered one of the endings, and there are a few more than that. There's a whole subplots that you have no idea about, like Chef Armando, the evil cooking pterodactyl. How could we forget about him? Anywho, play the game, support a la mode games. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.